Most people believe manipulation begins with criticism. It doesn't. Its most effective form often arrives as admiration. Not because praise is inherently dangerous, but because the right compliment can quietly reshape the way you see yourself. It lowers suspicion, builds trust, opens doors that force never could. Those who understand influence have long recognized something most people overlook. The easiest way to guide another person's decisions is rarely through pressure. It is through recognition, or more dangerously, through making someone feel extraordinary, because the most dangerous kind of flattery is rarely obvious. It doesn't sound exaggerated. It doesn't feel dishonest. If anything, it feels deeply personal, completely sincere. Imagine meeting someone for the first time. Within minutes, they seem to understand you better than people you've known for years. They notice qualities others rarely acknowledge: your discipline, your intelligence, your kindness, your potential. The conversation feels unusually effortless. For the first time in a long while, you feel truly seen. But psychology invites a different question. How could someone know exactly what you needed to hear so quickly? The answer is rarely chance. Long before people learn how to persuade, they learn how to observe. Every conversation reveals far more than most people realize, not only through words, but through expression, tone, body language, the stories we choose to tell, the memories we return to, even the insecurities we instinctively defend. Human beings are constantly revealing themselves. Most simply never realize they're doing it. A skilled observer doesn't begin by trying to influence you. They begin by understanding you. They notice what captures your attention, what frustrates you, what changes your posture, what brightens your eyes, what gives your voice just a little more confidence. Because hidden within those small reactions is something remarkably valuable. The quiet need every human being carries: to feel recognized. That need is not vanity, nor is it weakness. It is one of the deepest human desires we possess. Every person wants to believe there is something about them worth noticing, something distinctive, something worthy of admiration. That desire shapes far more of our lives than we realize. It influences our friendships, our ambitions, our relationships, even the people we choose to trust. And that is precisely why flattery has endured for thousands of years. Not because human beings enjoy compliments, but because the right compliment satisfies one of our oldest psychological needs, the need to feel significant. Most people believe flattery works because people are arrogant. The truth is more unsettling. It usually succeeds because people are searching for confirmation. Confirmation that their efforts matter, that their identity is real, that the person they are trying to become is visible to someone else. That is where admiration quietly begins to become influence. Not every compliment is manipulation. Many are sincere. Many deepen relationships. Many express gratitude honestly. The danger begins somewhere else. It begins the moment admiration stops being an expression and becomes a strategy. This pattern appears throughout history, in royal courts, political campaigns, corporate boardrooms, religious movements, even ordinary friendships. Those seeking influence rarely begin with demands. They begin with agreement. Agreement feels safe. It creates familiarity. And familiarity quietly lowers our defenses. Once that happens, praise becomes more than pleasant words. It becomes a bridge, one that leads quietly into trust. Psychologists have long understood that we are naturally drawn toward people who seem to value us, not simply because they compliment us, but because admiration creates a sense of emotional safety. When someone appears to appreciate who we are, our minds often assume they understand us. But understanding and strategy are not the same thing. That is why the most effective manipulators rarely flatter everyone. That would feel rehearsed, predictable, artificial. Instead, they flatter with precision. They first discover what another person values most, then reflect that identity back to them. Someone proud of their intelligence hears, "I've never met anyone who thinks the way you do." Someone longing to be respected hears, "People don't appreciate your leadership." someone afraid of being overlooked hears. You're different from everyone else. Notice what is happening. The compliment is never accidental. It quietly reinforces an identity the other person already wants to believe. That is what gives it its power. People are rarely manipulated into becoming someone new. They are gently encouraged to become more deeply attached to the version of themselves they already prefer. The moment that identity feels recognized, critical thinking begins to relax. Not because intelligence disappears, but because emotion quietly takes the lead. This reveals one of the oldest shortcuts of the human mind. When something feels personally validating, we instinctively question it less. We become less interested in asking, "Why are they saying this?" and more willing to enjoy how it makes us feel. The shift is almost impossible to notice, yet it changes everything. The conversation is no longer only about information. It has become about emotion. And emotion has always been easier to guide than logic. That is why genuine admiration and manipulative flattery can feel almost identical at first. The difference only becomes visible with time. Excessive admiration often arrives before requests, before favors, before loyalty, before influence. First comes recognition. Only later comes expectation. By then, many people never realize the transaction has already begun. There is another reason flattery is so effective, one that has very little to do with the person offering the compliment, and almost everything to do with the person receiving it. The human mind doesn't simply seek approval, it seeks consistency. Once we begin seeing ourselves in a certain way, we instinctively search for evidence that confirms it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. Long before science gave it a name, human nature was already practicing it. If you believe you are exceptionally intelligent, compliments about your intelligence feel immediately believable. If you see yourself as unusually kind, admiration for your generosity feels natural. The praise does not create the belief. It strengthens one that already exists. That is why intelligence alone offers no protection against flattery. In some cases, it can make a person even more vulnerable. Not because intelligent people lack judgment, but because every human being carries an identity they instinctively protect. No amount of intelligence removes that impulse. History offers countless examples: respected leaders, brilliant generals, successful entrepreneurs. People admired for their judgment have all surrounded themselves with voices that constantly affirmed them, not because they demanded deception, but because admiration is comfortable, and comfort has a quiet way of replacing honest feedback. That is how flattery becomes dangerous. Almost never overnight. Rarely through a single conversation. It happens gradually. A compliment here, agreement there, a carefully chosen observation at exactly the right moment. Little by little, the distance between reality and self-image begins to widen. The person no longer hears what is true. They begin hearing what feels consistent with the person they believe themselves to be. And as that distance grows, so does the opportunity for manipulation. Because once someone begins protecting an illusion, they also begin protecting the people who reinforce it. That is why manipulators rarely attack your weaknesses first. They strengthen your favorite beliefs. Only afterward do they begin asking for your trust, your loyalty, your time, your decisions. By then, their influence no longer feels like influence. It feels like friendship, like understanding, like support. That is precisely what makes it so difficult to recognize. Real manipulation rarely feels threatening. It feels reassuring, which is why the most dangerous compliments are often the ones we are most eager to believe. The greatest defense against manipulation is not suspicion, it is self-awareness. Many people assume the safest response is to distrust every compliment. That isn't wisdom, it is fear. Not everyone who admires you wants something from you. Some compliments are sincere. Some people genuinely appreciate your work, your character, your kindness, your effort. The real challenge is learning to distinguish appreciation from persuasion. The difference is rarely found in the words themselves. It reveals itself in what follows. Genuine appreciation expects nothing in return. Manipulative flattery almost always does. Sometimes the request comes immediately, sometimes weeks later, sometimes months. But eventually, the admiration begins asking for something: your agreement, your loyalty, your silence, your attention, your time. That is when its true purpose becomes visible. Influence rarely announces itself. It reveals itself through patterns. Notice the person who never disagrees with you. Notice the person who praises every decision you make. Notice the person who constantly makes you feel exceptional while quietly encouraging you to depend on their approval. At first, it feels empowering. Over time, it becomes a cage. Because the moment your confidence begins depending on another person's admiration, they quietly gain the power to withdraw it. And the fear of losing that approval slowly begins shaping your decisions. This is how influence becomes control, not through force, but through dependence. The wisest people understand something remarkably simple. The moment a compliment begins influencing your judgment, it has become more than a compliment. That is why emotional discipline matters. People who truly know who they are do not need constant reminders. They appreciate praise without becoming attached to it. They welcome encouragement without allowing it to define them, because their identity was never built on applause. It was built on understanding. When your confidence comes from within, admiration becomes something you can enjoy instead of something you need. And the people who wish to manipulate you lose one of their greatest advantages. They can still compliment you, but they can no longer control the meaning those compliments carry. That is where psychological freedom begins. There is a quiet irony at the heart of human nature. The people who hunger most for praise are often the easiest to influence, not because they lack intelligence, but because they have unknowingly placed their sense of worth into someone else's hands. The desire to be admired is natural. The desire to be seen, to be appreciated, to know that our efforts matter, is something every human being understands. But there is an important difference between appreciating recognition and depending on it. The moment your confidence requires constant validation, you become vulnerable to anyone willing to provide it. That is why the strongest minds cultivate a different habit. They welcome honest criticism. They value sincere appreciation, but they refuse to build their identity on either one. Because they understand something manipulation cannot survive. A person who truly knows themselves cannot be easily controlled by someone else's opinion. This is why wisdom has always chosen truth over comfort. Truth may challenge your ego. It may expose your blind spots. It may force you to confront parts of yourself you would rather avoid. But truth leaves you stronger. Flattery often does the opposite. It protects the ego while quietly weakening judgment. One helps you grow. The other simply helps you feel good for a little while. That is why some of the most valuable people in your life are not the ones who constantly tell you what you want to hear. They are the ones who respect you enough to tell you what you need to hear. Their honesty may be uncomfortable. Their words may challenge you, but they strengthen your character instead of feeding your vanity. Perhaps that is the real test of wisdom. Not asking, "Who admires me?" but asking, "Who helps me become better?" Because admiration without honesty is rarely love. More often, it is dependence disguised as kindness, and praise without truth is simply another form of illusion. The people who understand this stop chasing compliments. They begin pursuing clarity. They no longer measure themselves by applause, because applause is temporary. Instead, they measure themselves by character, by discipline, by integrity. Those qualities remain long after the compliments have faded. The next time someone tells you exactly what you have always wanted to hear, pause before believing it. Not because kindness should be questioned, but because wisdom quietly asks one question before accepting praise. Is this helping me understand myself, or simply making me feel better about myself? The answer may reveal far more than the compliment itself, because the most dangerous kind of flattery is rarely the one that sounds exaggerated. It is the one that quietly becomes part of your identity. And once another person begins shaping the way you see yourself, they no longer need to control your choices. Your own mind will begin doing it for them. That is why the deepest form of freedom is not learning how to resist praise. It is learning to know yourself so well that praise can never replace the truth. Think deeper. Go beyond average.